if you live in an American tourist hotspot, you might not have noticed it yet, but tourism to the U.S. is on the decline. The U.S. is set to lose $12.5 billion because of it. Traveler spending here is already down 22.5%. That's from last year.
U.S. Ambassador to Canada Pete Hoekstra made some, let's call them interesting comments today about relations between our two countries, and he theorized why President Trump calls Canadians mean and nasty.
I had planned maybe towards the end of the year to go to the States, but I'm not going. I'm just gonna go somewhere else towards the islands. The States, no. It really made me take a step back.
The hospitality industry in the United States is facing an unprecedented crisis, largely due to the economic and political rift caused by President Donald Trump's tariffs on Canadian goods. The tariffs, which were imposed on most of Canada's exports, have prompted an outpouring of backlash from Canadians, who are now being urged by their government to reconsider visiting the United States. The repercussions of this directive are reverberating across the U.S. tourism and hospitality sectors, which are heavily reliant on international visitors, particularly those from Canada. The U.S. hotel and hospitality industry has long depended on immigrant labor to fill essential roles, including housekeeping, laundry, food preparation, and seasonal resort staffing. Immigrants have been a crucial workforce, especially in maintaining the industry's capacity to meet demand in peak seasons and ensuring smooth operations across various sectors. However, the ongoing immigration crisis, coupled with over 1 million job vacancies and rising quit rates, has exacerbated staffing shortages, leaving many positions unfilled. This reliance on foreign workers has made the industry vulnerable to potential policy shifts, with discussions about tighter immigration rules stirring fears that any further restrictions could intensify workforce disruptions. As the labor shortage continues to impact operations, the future of the hospitality sector remains uncertain, with immigrant workers playing an indispensable role in its survival. Canada represents the largest international market for U.S. tourism, and Canadians have long been a mainstay in American hotels, restaurants, attractions, and recreational spots. However, the imposition of tariffs has fueled a wave of cancellations, as many Canadians are choosing to cancel their trips to the U.S. altogether.
Canadian Airlines are taking away flights to popular U.S. cities. This after many Canadian vacationers apparently are avoiding the U.S.,
opting instead for domestic vacations or alternative international destinations. The numbers speak for themselves. According to the U.S. Travel Association, even a 10% reduction in Canadian inbound travel could result in 2 million fewer visits, a loss of $2.1 billion in spending, and the jeopardizing of 140,000 jobs in the hospitality sector. The potential economic blow could be devastating, especially for border towns and popular tourist destinations that rely heavily on Canadian tourists. The ripple effect is already being felt in some of the most visited states by Canadian tourists, such as Florida and Texas. In 2023, Canadians represented 38% of all foreign tourists to Florida.
Fort Lauderdale tourism officials say they've seen a marked decline in the number of Canadians visiting the state since U.S. President Donald Trump began making 51st state comments, and some Canadians I spoke to here in Fort Lauderdale say they wouldn't have made the trip if it wasn't for the Stanley Cup final. Beautiful beaches, hot weather, and no shortage of things to do, Florida was a popular location for Canadians to escape the winter.
According to Visit Florida, and their absence would create a massive shortfall in revenue.
Concerning. Canadian tourism is down about 20%. Canada's our number one visitor market, so it's disturbing.
Particularly in key sectors such as hotels, restaurants, and recreational activities. In Texas, which is the second largest international market for Canadian visitors, the loss could be similarly catastrophic, with $43.3 million in travel spending having been generated by Canadians in 2023 alone. Beyond the financial toll, the broader implications of this boycott are also felt politically and socially. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has been vocal in urging Canadians to reconsider their travel plans to the U.S., encouraging them to focus instead on domestic tourism. He is not alone in his stance. Canadians across the country have expressed anger and disappointment, both with the tariffs and the overall political climate under President Trump. This sentiment has fueled the travel boycott, which many view as an act of patriotism and a form of resistance to U.S. policies they deem unfair and aggressive. The surge in cancellations has had immediate consequences for major travel agencies, such as Flight Centre, Canada's largest travel agency. According to reports, there has been a marked increase in customers cancelling their US vacations and rebooking their travel plans elsewhere. This has included the cancellation of high-value trips, such as bucket list vacations and milestone experiences, often valued in the tens of thousands of Canadian dollars. Many Canadians are opting to explore destinations within their own country or traveling to warmer locales such as Mexico, rather than supporting US tourism. The numbers also reflect a deepening trend. According to Statistics Canada, there was a 38% drop in the number of Canadians taking road trips into the US in May 2025 compared to the same period the previous year. This decline follows a broader pattern of decreasing Canadian travel to the US over the past several months. Air travel from Canada to the US also fell by 24% year over year, a signal that the impact of the tariffs is not just a short-term issue, but part of a larger, sustained shift in travel patterns. This shift is underscored by the fact that more Canadians are planning to travel within their home country. In 2024, 77% of Canadians surveyed indicated that they planned to spend their leisure travel time within Canada, a significant increase from 69% in 2023. In contrast, US travel plans have dropped sharply, with only 10% of Canadians intending to visit the US in 2024 compared to 23% the previous year. This growing trend of domestic travel further compounds the financial burden on the US hospitality industry, which was already struggling due to the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic. As these statistics continue to paint a bleak picture for US tourism, the forecast for 2025 appears even grimmer. Tourism Economics, a leading travel research firm, projects a 9% drop in international arrivals to the US in 2025. A decline of $8.5 billion in international visitor spending. The World Travel and Tourism Council paints an even more dire picture, predicting a loss of $12.5 billion in tourism revenue for the US over the same period. The loss of Canadian tourists, who are traditionally the largest group of foreign visitors to the US, is likely to account for a significant portion of this decline. In response to this crisis, some US border towns are already making contingency plans. Local businesses in areas such as Niagara Falls, Buffalo, and other cities along the US-Canada border are bracing for a slower season. For many, the loss of Canadian visitors could mean fewer customers in hotels, restaurants, and attractions, potentially leading to job cuts or even business closures. Some businesses are already reporting lower sales figures and are seeking ways to mitigate the impact of this downturn by targeting other international markets or doubling down on local tourism efforts. The fallout of this economic crisis is not limited to just the tourism industry. Many small businesses, particularly those that cater to Canadian visitors, are facing significant losses. From souvenir shops to local transportation services, businesses across the US border region are seeing their revenue streams dry up as fewer Canadians cross into the country. The tourism-dependent communities that rely on this cross-border traffic are particularly vulnerable, as they have no immediate recourse for replacing the lost revenue. Social media has become a platform for Canadians to express their frustrations, with many vowing to boycott travel to the US for the duration of President Trump's tenure. While some Canadians feel strongly about this political statement and are determined to avoid spending money in the US until there is a change in leadership, others feel torn. Many Canadians have family or professional obligations that may necessitate travel to the US, despite their political objections. This divide reflects the complexity of the situation, where the personal and political intersect. Some Canadian snowbirds, who traditionally escape the harsh Canadian winters in states like Florida and Arizona, are now opting to stay in Canada during the winter months, or are making permanent moves back to their home country. This trend is exacerbated by the overall political climate, with many Canadians citing Trump's rhetoric and actions as their primary reason for altering their travel plans. For these individuals, the decision to stay home or find alternative destinations represents a broader statement of discontent. For those who have already cancelled their trips to the US, the financial consequences are significant. Hotels, airlines, and tour operators in the US are seeing increased cancellations, while bookings for domestic Canadian vacations are on the rise. The shift is particularly evident in popular destinations such as Whistler, British Columbia, and Banff National Park, where Canadians are choosing to stay within their borders rather than cross into the US. US hospitality industry is facing a major crisis as the political and economic fallout from President Trump's tariffs continues to deter Canadian visitors. The loss of Canadian tourism is expected to have a profound impact on US tourism revenue, job security, and the viability of businesses that rely on cross-border traffic. As Canadians increasingly boycott travel to the US in response to the tariffs, the US tourism industry must find new ways to adapt to this shifting landscape, focusing on attracting other international markets and rethinking its tourism strategy to weather this storm.